Montel, is America obsessed with sex? Don't answer until you meet these people.
I have no interest in sex. It's not like I just tried it once and went, ew, I gave it a good try.
They're asexual, and they're fine with it. Still virgin?
I really don't like that word.
These couples swear they're madly in love. You experience zero sexual attraction?
No, I simply don't have the interest.
Are they missing out, or have they discovered the true meaning of love? That's what's coming up right now. Thank you so much for joining us today. You know, today we're going to meet some people who you might find a little different because they lead sexless lives, and they love it. These people say that their asexuality is not a choice like celibacy. Take a look at this. Sex. Every day we are bombarded with images of sex and sexuality. Sex sells. And it is a staple in advertising. It might seem that the American culture is obsessed with sex, but according to a recent study, there are a group of people with no interest in sex at all.
In 2004, I published a study on asexuality. One of the interesting findings was about 1% indicated that they, in fact, had no sexual attraction for other people. I myself think that asexuality should be considered a legitimate sexual orientation.
Sometimes it can be difficult to be asexual in a world that's so focused on sexuality. I've known that I was asexual since I was about 14 or 15. Kind of when all my friends started realizing that they were interested in sex, I just couldn't relate to what they were going through. I'd always known that I was different than my friends, but that's when I started using the word asexual to describe myself. I started the website asexuality.org because I really felt the need to find other people like me and start a discussion about asexuality because no one was talking about this topic. And once I started the website, it really took off, and now we have over 12,000 members across the world. I'd say the biggest misconception about asexuality is that we aren't as capable of forming intimate, close relationships as sexual people are. And that's not true. If you look around the asexual community, there's all kinds of intense emotional connections that are happening all over the place.
Well, to help us understand this, please welcome the psychologist and sex therapist and author of the book, Fearless Sex, A Babe's Guide to Overcoming Your Romantic Obsessions and Getting the Sex Life You Desire. Welcome, Dr. Joy Davidson, to the show. Thank you, Doctor. Look, you know what? This one blows me just a little bit, and I wanted to talk about this first. Let's talk about sexuality to begin with. Would you consider asexuality one of the categories now of sex? You have homosexuality, heterosexuality, gay, lesbianism. I mean, and now we have to add another term, asexuality?
Well, at this point, there is really no scientific backing for the idea that asexuality is an orientation. We just don't know enough about it yet. So the claim is a bit spurious. What we have to understand when we think about our sexuality in the first place is that it's extremely complicated, and it's a vital, dynamic process that grows and changes and involves every part of who we are. We are made up of so many elements, so many components. We are so colorful sexually that trying to put ourselves in little boxes, any one person putting themselves in a little box before fully exploring all of the possibilities, all of the feelings, and looking at them from both a neurological point of view, an emotional point of view, a relational point of view, and a physiological point of view means that we aren't seeing ourselves completely.
So if we're buying that we have this big spectrum of what we consider sexuality, then we must throw in the spectrum that there are people out there who just don't care, don't want sex, don't want to have that kind of intimate relation. They might not mind touch, but they don't want to be touched intimately, sexually. They don't mind being hugged. They don't mind being kissed, but they don't want to go any further. And I'm just trying to figure this out. Okay?
And
but I'm saying,
we're all trying to figure it out.
If you never tried it, how do you know you don't like it?
Well, you can't ask someone to do what doesn't feel right to them. You can't force sex on anybody, including someone who is sexually desirous. So I think the point is that we have to ask what makes us desire or what makes us turn off to desire. And there are so many factors that collude to leave us desiring or not. But without looking at them all, we miss.
As a total being, I feel anger, I feel shame, I feel fear, I feel happy, I feel sexual arousal. So if I don't allow myself to do one portion of what I am and made of, am I not hurting some other area of what I am?
That's a very good question. Yeah, it's a very good question. And I think people who see themselves as asexual would suggest that there are many things to do besides fulfill that particular function, just as I may choose not to have children, but I'm still fulfilling my function as a being. Nevertheless, there are conditions, there are numerous conditions which have the symptom of a lack of interest or desire for sex.
Well, now, our guest might say that, look, there's nothing wrong with me. You're not going to fix me. So I'm telling you right now that I have guests on the show today who say that they are asexual. They do not care at all about having sexual relationships. They just want to be in a relationship. I don't know. Please welcome the founder of the Asexual Visibility and Education Network, Mr. David J. Welcome to the show. David, have a seat. Have a seat. Talk to me.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Explain this to me. What is this? You are the founder of this organization.
Yes, I'm the founder of the Asexual Visibility and Education Network, asexuality.org, which is where most of the discussion about asexuality is happening right now.
Okay, and on your website?
Yeah.
That you created. Before you created, there was no asexuality website. There were no members trying to find an organization to come together with.
There were people looking. There was no discussion. And I know I and a lot of other people in the community felt really confused, really isolated. This isn't an easy society to grow up asexual in, unless there's a place to say, you know what, this can be okay. We can talk about our experiences. Nothing bad is happening to us. There's no reason we're limited.
All right, so let me do this. Let me take a little break, and we come back, just so my viewers at home can understand this. Let's talk, we'll talk about you a little bit. I want to understand what this means. When you say you're asexual, you're how old now?
I'm 24.
And if I use the term virgin, still virgin?
Yeah, but I really don't like that word. Because it implies that I'm innocent and I'm not.
Look at the smiles that just evoked. So now we're, okay, I'm going to take a break. Come back and talk to me about this. Explain this so I understand. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Most of the close relationships I formed have been with sexual people.
Okay.
And I've never asked them to stop being sexual. It's just not part of their relationship with me. So
you let your girlfriend go out with somebody else and come back?
Yeah.
I still wanted a boyfriend. I still wanted that closeness with someone, someone to share your life with, someone to do things with. And I just felt that that's what I had to do. I had to have sex in order to have those other things that I wanted. I didn't want to have sex necessarily, but I wanted the closeness, and so it was a trade-off.
All right, today we're talking to people who say that they are asexual, and that this is a category, in a sense, in the spectrum of sexuality that should be respected, should be understood, should be included in our discussions. When we talk about sex, we should also flip the coin and talk about this. And I'm not talking abstinence. We're not talking about religious.
I grew up in a really open, I went to a great high school, I had a great family that told me about sex, had open, honest discussion about sex early on. That's what let me understand myself.
All right, then people are going to say, yeah, right, but you were sexually abused by the teacher or by the bus driver or by the milkman.
No. And we kind of asked informally around the community. There's no evidence that that's any more prevalent in the asexual community than anywhere else. We haven't done any scientific studies, but...
Okay, so now you're 7. You're 8. You're 9 years old.
When my friends kind of all started to talk about and explore their sexuality, they were like, all right, you know, it'll happen to you. You'll start feeling all these feelings, all these sexual feelings. So I kind of went for about 2 years and realized this wasn't happening to me. What my friends were talking about, all the sexual experiences they were having, I just wasn't having. And so I said, either I can sit around and wait to live my life until my sexuality shows up, or I can start figuring out where I am now.
But wait, no, I'm not. David, okay, your friends, were they football players and stuff in the school? Or were they? The cool guys?
I have very little problem with people a lack of people wanting to have sex with me. I've had plenty of offers, don't worry. And it's not, if that's what you're getting at.
No,
and also,
I don't know. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that maybe at the time you weren't like out there trying to be the Mac Daddy, so it's not that they weren't offering. I'm just saying you weren't out there running around like your friends were hounding and pressuring girls. And
I didn't feel a need to.
Okay.
I was connecting with people in other ways, and I was exploring connecting with people in other ways, and that's been really what's exciting for me. You know, the equivalent of all the energy that other people put into sexuality, I put into non-sexual intimacy, figuring out how to connect with people without sex.
All right, okay, I got that. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Yep.
17, 18.
And at that point, I was confused. I didn't know what was going on because no one was talking about this stuff. So I thought I was the only one. I didn't know what was happening. Finally, I realized, you know what, this isn't a problem. I can't see one reason why this should limit me in my life.
Did you have a girlfriend?
Not at that point, no.
When was your first? Wait a second before anybody makes a comment about this, because this one is really good. You date both male and female.
More women.
In a sense of
more
when I say
women,
date.
yeah.
But we're not talking the same thing when we say date, are we?
Well, it's in the community, the whole barrier between kind of the person you're close friends with and the person you're dating gets really blurred because we don't have, the sexual relationships over here, the non-sexual relationships over here. And so it tends to kind of be a fuzzy line with relationships somewhere in the middle.
I'm kind of getting this, but what you're saying to me is that intimacy without intercourse, intimacy without sexual touch,
yeah,
or some sexual touch.
There's no reason why that's any less valid.
No, and nobody said to you, and I'm serious when I say this.
Go ahead.
Trust me, I'm not trying to. But nobody said to you, let's go get your hormones checked. Let's go figure out whether or not there's something off here.
I haven't personally. Other people in the community have, and there's no evidence. There's no correlation that we've been able to find with anything medical. But again, there's been no scientific studies, but there's no reason to think that it's correlated with anything.
So far right now, your life and all the relationships you've had that have been intimate, you feel fulfilled?
Completely.
As fulfilled as anybody who would have turned that relationship sexual?
Completely.
This may be an option for some people. I mean, honestly, how many people would consider what he's saying is that, you don't have to be sexual. Let's drop the sexual part of a relationship and just be intimate in other ways. How many people would do that? I'm going to talk to that one lady when we come back. We'll be back right after this.
We're never really entirely sure what romance is because it's universally associated with sexuality, but we do absolutely have a romantic relationship.
It's really not so different. We just don't have sex.
I have no doubt in my mind that I'm asexual and that I have no interest in sex. It's not like I just tried it once and went, ew, I gave it a good try.
Now, you know what, and I'm really not, and let's make sure, I want everybody to understand, David, really, honestly, I may be asking you questions because I'm trying to find a humorous way to talk about what is a delicate subject in daytime. But at the same time, I'm not taking anything that you're saying lightly, and if a person feels this way and that's how they want to live their life, I have no ability to judge you or to complain about what you're doing. But I'm going to ask you. Now, you just said out of everybody in this room, and every person in this room was sitting there going, well, I live my life without having sex. No. And you said, I could.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me about this. Why? Have you been in intimate relationships before involving sex?
Yes.
And that was okay?
Yes.
So, to a degree. But now, can I also see, I think that some of this is nature and nurture. Now, from a nurture standpoint, have you been in bad relationships? And you don't have to go to detail, but there may be a reason now that you've decided to opt out.
Yeah, I've had some bad relationships.
Okay. So, but for you, if in fact, let's say you met me, you and I were hanging out, and decided, you know what, we're just going to be together, and this is all I need from you. I don't need you to touch me anywhere. I don't.
That's good. That's good.
Girlfriend, I'm the wrong dude. I should be doing it. But it would be okay.
Yes.
All right. So now, David. So now, having said that, that would be okay, and I'm getting to this. And this afternoon, you went. Let's say you go out to a great restaurant here in town. You go back to your place, her place. She comes strolling out of the room. I'm asking. in a teddy or in some nice lingerie, you gonna sit there and say, yo, let's just play some Nintendo?
Well, it would probably come up before then. I mean, they would have picked me up after this show about asexuality on Montel, so hopefully they'd know.
Right.
And usually people know before it gets to that point.
But the truth is, even people that sign up for the asexuality, some of them have nurture reasons why they're not being sexual any longer. And maybe they come to us and all of a sudden, damn, Dave is fine. The girl sitting there with you, she's been asexual for the last 12 years. Ain't even thinking about it, but bingo, bango, you are the man.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Well, okay. To this whole nature-nurture thing. I want to touch on this whole nature-nurture thing you were just talking about. Because in the community, what we want is to have an open, honest discussion about asexuality and about sexuality. So someone comes to the community, we don't say, all right, you're asexual, you're in this camp, you're sexual, you're in this camp. We say, here's a set of words you can use to figure yourself out. Here's an open discussion we're having, and we want you to be as honest about yourself as possible.
Okay.
How many people in the audience have had a close, intimate relationship with somebody that doesn't involve sexuality? Can we get more hands?
A close, intimate relationship with someone that didn't involve sexuality.
So why are relationships that involve this one activity so fundamentally different than relationships that don't? That's the question I want to pose to you. Because if they're not different, then I'm not really going through anything different than what sexual people are going through.
Okay. I tell you what, I'm going to reserve that because that's the question right there. That is the core question right there. I'm going to reserve my answer to that question to the end of the show. Okay. But let's just talk to my next guest. Say that they're just like any other romantic couple except for one thing. They don't have sex. Now take a look at this.
I identified myself as asexual as soon as I found out that there was such a thing, which was only a little more than a year ago. It's something that I've always felt. I just didn't know that there was a word for it. People have a hard time understanding what it means to not be sexually attracted to anybody, but I don't think it's really that difficult because all of us have some group of people we're not sexually attracted to, so if you just kind of expand that to imagine it's everybody, then that's pretty much it. I met Winter, and things just kind of developed from there.
There was no intention for us to date. It was just a friendly setup.
We're never really entirely sure what romance is because it's universally associated with sexuality, but we do absolutely have a romantic relationship, or there's nothing else to call it really. We find it amusing a lot that people have a hard time seeing the difference between, say, my relationship with Winter and my other friendships. It's as basic as, the fact that we fell in love. That's what makes it different.
It's really not so different. We just don't have sex.
We do, hold hands, hug, kiss. All of those things for us are just ways of being close and being affectionate.
I don't really feel any arousal as a result of being around Paul.
So there's a lot more to life besides just sex.
If a doctor offered me a pill to make me a sexual person, I wouldn't take it because I'm comfortable enough as I am and I'm happy enough as I am. I don't see the point in changing something.
We'll take a break and we'll meet this couple when we come back. We'll be back right after this.
Keith and I met about 2 years ago. We started out as friends, never dreaming that it was going to morph into something much bigger later on.
Except for me, our emotional relationship is just far more intimate than anything that could ever happen physically.
Please welcome Winter and Paul to the show. Welcome them. So I'll start with you, Winter. When did you first identify yourself or understand that you were, and I keep saying asexual?
I first started calling myself asexual when I was 16, but at the time I didn't realize that that was actually a legitimate orientation, so it was really more of a joke. I didn't date, I wasn't interested in dating, and I wasn't really interested in sex. It just kind of remained a curiosity. But it wasn't until I was 19 that I found Avon, and I found out that there were a lot more people like me.
And Paul, how about yourself? Same thing?
Pretty similar. I didn't use the term asexual until I found the website in the community a little more than a year ago, but, it's just kind of, I've always felt this way, and it was everyone around me who changed, and I became increasingly confused about that, but my friends didn't really see it as a problem, and it was just kind of known that I was that way.
I'm going to ask a question. If tomorrow, and now, follow me, because I'm just asking. If tomorrow morning I woke up and I lose the sense of touch in my fingers, okay? That's what happens when you get one of the symptoms that I have for MS. I'll touch my finger. I could walk around for a while. I walked around for about 3 years, off and on, barely feeling anything with my fingers. I could touch things and not feel it, okay? I realized after about 9 months of that, enough. I need to figure out why can't I feel stuff. So I went to a doctor. So a doctor started asking questions. The doctors identified in me that I have an issue. It's called MS. That causes some difficulties in me in a lot of different places. This isn't a put down. I'm not trying to say you're broken and need to be fixed. But if you were born with a low libido, a smaller pituitary gland, or born without the amount of hormone in your body that you would need to be able to sustain a sex drive, why not go to a doctor and say, not fix me, but make me whole? Why am I not functioning like a human being is supposed to function?
And that's a perfectly relevant question, but if you don't feel like there's anything wrong, it's not a problem. It's only worth going to a doctor, going to a psychiatrist, seeking help for it, if you're really concerned why you feel this way. We're perfectly happy as we are. We understand who we are, and that's really more important than anything else. It's just understanding why you feel that way.
I also think that it's use the example of somebody who has a problem with the pituitary gland or something causing a low libido, and there are a lot of, that's not a hypothetical thing, there are plenty of people who have that problem, and from what I hear, most of those people still experience sexual attraction.
But you experience zero sexual attraction?
No.
Mm-hmm. None. So then, if no sexual attraction, then the two of you are a couple.
Yes, we are.
So what is the attraction that you have?
Well, I think you have to look at it this way. For every relationship you have your romantic relationships and you have your platonic relationships. Now, maybe sex for a lot of people is that huge component that differentiates the two.
Mm-hmm.
But if you remove sex from the equation, you're still inherently going to feel differently about somebody that you're romantically attracted to.
So you two are in love?
Yes.
Yeah.
You would say that you're in love?
Absolutely.
You will get married one day, possibly?
Quite possibly.
Could happen.
And would you have children one day?
Well, I know we're both fans of adoption.
Yeah.
So it's,
I think
that's
we
really,
both feel adoption is a good option for many people.
It's, that
So
idea.
you wouldn't think, hey, come on, you got married, you wouldn't say, let's just do it once when we get a baby.
Well, it's really, if family is ultimately what you're looking for, it doesn't really matter how that child comes into your life. There are many different options for that.
Absolutely right.
I'd say the same is true with me, too.
So adoption could be your option?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm planning on.
Let me take a break. When we come back, a woman who has had sex but says that she will never, ever, ever, and doesn't need to do it ever again. So now she's asexual, right? She now can be asexual.
Well, she identifies as asexual, so she's asexual.
Okay, let me take a break. We'll be back right after this. Well, my next guest says that she's asexual but is not a virgin. Please welcome CJ to the show. CJ, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I talked to a lady in the audience who was involved, you've had multiple, I shouldn't say it that way, you've been involved in a couple of relationships.
Yes, I have.
They were long-term relationships.
Yes, they were.
That were sexual relationships.
Yes, they were.
But you've kind of described that as being not gratifying for you, just something you went along with to do.
Right. I mean, when I was younger, of course, similarly to my, community members here, I didn't feel a need for any type of sexual exploration, but I knew that other people were doing it, and I knew that I was different in that way. But I still wanted a relationship. I still wanted a boyfriend. I still wanted that closeness with someone, someone to share your life with, someone to do things with. And I just felt that that's what I had to do. I had to have sex in order to have those other things that I wanted. I didn't want to have sex necessarily, but I wanted the closeness, and so it was a trade-off.
So, but in those relationships, you did have, they were sexual relationships.
Yes, they were.
But you said yourself that some of those ended because you weren't really into it.
That's right. Of course, I was foolish, I think, to get into those relationships now, thinking back on it. But, yeah, sex became an issue, of course, because the guy wanted to have sex, and I did not.
Maybe you just met a guy who didn't know how to rock your world. You just need to have your world rocked once and everything will change.
It's not like it was just one guy. So I have no doubt in my mind that I'm asexual and that I have no interest in sex. It's not like I just tried it once and went, ew, I gave it quite I gave a good try.
But when I go back to, maybe you just gave a good try. It's like, you know, some people go to see psychiatrists, psychologists, and it's a bad fit. They walk out, they don't get any help at all. Maybe it was the wrong guy. Maybe.
But there's been more than one guy. So unless I pick the wrong guy each time.
You could. There are a lot of women who do that.
How many times do you have to try something you don't like in order to be able to say you don't like it?
I think most people can say, you know, most heterosexuals know they're heterosexual without ever having sex with, you know, somebody of the same gender.
Right. Orientation. So you're saying that most asexual people know that they're asexual whether they had sex or not.
Mm-hmm.
Entirely.
Yeah, orientation isn't about how you respond to sex. It's about who you seek out sex with. It's about attraction and who you're pursuing and how you treat people.
So are you in a relationship now?
No, I'm not.
And are you want to have a relationship in your life?
I would like that. I mean, my last relationship ended in 2002, so it's been 4 years. And at the time when it ended, I felt for me that it was a decision I was making. You know, as I said before, it was a trade-off. I felt I had to have sex in order to have the relationship. And at this point, I just felt I can't make that trade-off anymore. It's just not, I just can't do it.
Right now, that's of no interest whatsoever. So you're looking for somebody that you can make an emotional connection with. And let's say you find a guy that you can make that emotional connection with, and that lasts for 7, 8, 9, 10 months. I just can't.
Well, you see, but that's why I'm so happy to have found the asexual community, because now I have hope again. I really did feel that I was going to spend the rest of my life alone because I didn't want to have sex anymore. And I had accepted it, and I was fine, and I was living my life. But then I found the asexual community, and I was so excited. I was so thrilled to know there were other people like me out there, and I have the possibility.
Who's getting to it? Raise your hand. Anybody out there got you? I still got one.
And now maybe I will actually find an asexual guy to share my life with. I would be so thrilled if that happened.
So therefore, why not go see a doc and say, you know what? I'm 25 years old. I had 3 relationships, and all of them, I don't really like it. And there must be something going on in me that makes me feel that way.
Well, I actually did go and see a doctor because my last relationship, my boyfriend was quite unhappy with our sex life, understandably so. I found very inventive ways of avoiding it. And, you know, so he told me, he said, there's something wrong with you, you're not normal, you know, you should go get yourself fixed, basically. And I gave it a try for the sake of the relationship, and I talked to my doctor about it, and she wasn't very keen on giving me anything. You know, her reaction was, well, that's the way God made you. So, and at the time, the relationship was falling apart anyway, so I didn't pursue it. And frankly, I didn't want to pursue it. And personally, I was fine with never doing it again.
I got you. Let me take a break. When we come back, we'll meet an asexual man who explains how he finally found true love. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. My next guest said that when they stopped trying to be sexual, they started finally being happy. Take a look at this.
I lost my virginity when I was 19 to my boyfriend, and I thought he was the love of my life, and it was the thing to do. So I did. It wasn't terrible, but it just really wasn't as much as I was led to believe that it was going to be. I finally got married when I was 45, and everything wasn't wonderful. The interest wasn't there. I was with my husband for 7 years, and we never really successfully had sex.
I also thought that marriage would somehow turn me into a sexual person. I was married for 6 years, but had sex with my wife very infrequently. My wife was convinced that I was gay, and after the divorce, I did try having a relationship with a man. That sexual relationship was just as undesirable and unfulfilling as my sexual relationships with women had been.
Keith and I met about 2 years ago. We started out as friends, never dreaming that it was going to morph into something much bigger later on.
And so for me, our emotional relationship is just far more intimate than anything that could ever happen physically. Just every sexual person I know is dissatisfied in a relationship in some way, and mine is exactly what I want it to be. I have the most satisfying sex life of anyone I know. Why in the world would I want to change that?
Please welcome Nancy and Keith to the show. You just said we have the most satisfying sex life, but you don't have a sex life.
Oh, yeah, you're just having a very hard time understanding that and getting that, aren't you? Well, there's
you know why? Because just as but you guys have to understand, if you represent less than 1% of the world's population, we would have as difficult a time understanding you as you would have a difficult time understanding us.
Well, actually, that's quite true. And frankly, if you don't understand it, if you don't get it, we're not talking to you. You're not asexual.
Gotcha.
Go out, have sex, have a great time, do exactly what you want to. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Out of this audience, we had one person stand up, and that is statistically valid.
Right.
Very few people are going to understand and are going to resonate with that concept, but that's one of the reasons why we talk about it. The majority of people who listen to us aren't asexual, but that small percentage of people who are, and who are feeling lost, they're feeling alone.
They hear you clearly.
They're feeling trapped. That gets through. And that's why it is so important to talk about it.
This organization started, David, you started with the first couple of months that you were up on the internet, you only had about, what, 20, 30, 40 people?
20, 30, 40 people. We hit 100, and then it eventually took off, and we've got about 12,000 members internationally now. 12,000. So I mean, from 0 to 12,000 is a pretty significant number of people who've reached out to get help. But what we really want to do is create discussion about this, create open, honest dialogue.
Nancy, I mean, with the two of you are a couple now.
I believe we are, yes.
And, you know, but this has been a long-distance relationship,
Yes,
too.
we're a long-distance relationship right now. We haven't had a whole lot of time together, but our connection is mental, emotional.
You have been in a sexual relationship before in your life.
Yes.
You've been in sexual relationships before in your life. So what's to say when the two of you finally get time in each other's space, you know, somebody might remember, hey, I remember one day.
You know,
I remember one day.
There's no reason why that couldn't or shouldn't happen. It's not because I don't not have sex because I'm uncomfortable with the concept, or that I find some part of it distasteful or wrong, bad, unpleasant. I do it because I simply don't have the interest. The connections I form with people are not based on it and are in fact entirely beside the point.
But once a relationship is formed and it becomes a committed union, the two of you say you lay in bed together, you hug, you cuddle, you kiss. Correct?
We sleep together every night.
It's along the spectrum of sexuality. You have, look at it from a bell curve perspective. You have the bulk of people that, they're interested in sex. They like to have sex. It's not necessarily a driving force in their life. Then you have people who, sex is a driving point in their life, and they're an extreme case. It's what they're always going after. So, of course, you're going to have the opposite extreme where there's some people who just, don't really care at all.
Gotcha. Let me take a break. We'll be back right after this. Well, again, please welcome back the author of the book, Fearless Sex, Dr. Joy Davidson. Welcome back. So you've been backstage. I deliberately didn't let you sit out here during this entire show because I wanted you to just listen. I wanted you to influence me at all. I mean, looking at you when you started raising an eyebrow and getting ready to ask a question. But now you had the chance to hear this.
Yeah.
And?
And I've been jumping out of my seat back there. What's disturbing to me is not that I take issue with anything anyone has to say about their own personal experience. What is disturbing to me is the level of misinformation being communicated to viewers and thousands of people out there who are struggling, who are questioning, who are confused. Yes, there is a correlation between asexuality and various physiological conditions. Asperger's syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, none of which is even mentioned on your website. These are chromosomal and neurological abnormalities.
Within our community,
we have many very active members with Asperger's who have joined together. They discuss it quite often.
I believe that, and I searched your website, and I could not find one single mention, nothing scholarly on your website, nothing written by experts, nothing that has a basis in scientific evidence, and no one with any qualifications speaking on the subject about the hormonal condition. For example, when you do not have the proper degree of sex hormone or balanced hormones in your body, you do not feel interested in sex. And the idea of having interest seems outrageous. So to say that I don't want sex, and if someone gave me a pill and I would be sexual and I wouldn't want it, is indicative of a hormonal imbalance. I'm not saying you have a hormonal imbalance. I'm saying it's one of the things we hear all the time when people do have hormonal imbalances. So there are so many flags. There's so much information on this topic that people who are struggling, who feel out of sorts with the rest of their...
Yeah, I mean, it's so much. What if that person who is closing her website, who feels like she does, who doesn't understand, but then wait a minute, comes up with a group of people who says, oh, the heck with it. Don't care whether or not people don't like the fact that you're having sex or not. Just live with what you have. But maybe they don't want to live that way.
We do tell people that they should, especially if they experience a sudden change in sexual desire, that they should go and check with a doctor to make sure there isn't anything associated that could have negative side effects that's going on. My question, it seems like you're talking about two things. You're talking about a lack of sexuality, which we don't consider a negative side effect, and other things, other physiological conditions that could have a negative side effect. And if I think, if something's happening to someone's body that has negative side effects and diminishes their interest in sexuality, by all means, they should go and get checked out.
What if they don't even know it?
That's the point. They won't know it. If they reach adulthood without being aware of these conditions because of other syndromes, then when they find you, they are, in fact, going to think they may have found home. Now, maybe some indeed have, but others need to have much more information than you are offering and need to have information offered by experts. Psychiatrists, psychologists, certified sex therapists, neurologists, endocrinologists.
What are those experts writing about asexuality? Because I haven't seen it, and I would love to put it up on the site if I have permission to.
You've never asked me, and I've written about asexuality.
I've written you emails before that I haven't gotten responses, but maybe they didn't.
But yeah. The point is, you are, in a sense, recruiting from among a group of people who are in dire need of a genuine education.
You go to hide from your sexuality. This is a place that you go to ask questions about your sexuality. If you're just looking to hide from a problem, we're not the place for you.
And but see, the question was exactly, let's go back to it. What if you don't even know you're looking to hide from a problem? What if you are a child born with Asperger's syndrome and don't know that? You live your entire life now, you're 16 years old, and think that the place that I belong is with you guys. And maybe I never had an opportunity.
With Asperger's syndrome, you're going to have a lot more symptoms than asexuality.
No,
there are going to be much bigger issues.
I can also tell you that that's also, let's make sure we tell the truth now, and we'll give out as much fact. Asperger's syndrome has as wide a spectrum as what you talk about when it comes to sexuality. So stop, don't say that. Some people can just experience just that little piece and not even know. You have people who are born autistic who don't know they're autistic until they're 50 years old. So, again, let's back up and say, what if, again, I'm that person and I'm just struggling, but now I've been validated by a group of people who haven't taken the time, in some ways, to give me all of the medical information that I could have utilized to figure out who I am. Well, you're saying it's a spot to find out who you are, and if, in fact, she's right that I can't find out who I am because I don't get enough information to look at the entire spectrum, all I get is be okay with the fact that you don't like sex, I may not be fulfilling myself as a human being.
We're saying we think it's okay, we're happy, and here's a place where you can come explore yourself. Here's a place where you can talk about yourself. We're not saying come to the asexual community and then just give up trying to figure out who you are. It's a community where we're very actively asking questions about ourselves and very actively exploring
Then I would say that a lot of people who are watching the show today, there are probably authorities like yourself, Dr. Davidson, and other doctors out there across the country that need to understand that there's a website with 12,000 people on it asking questions. And what they ought to do is have doctors start inputting and coming up on your website and start offering up some extra information.
I've been speaking at conferences, I've been speaking at universities who have been trying to do outreach to the scientific community and to the medical community so we can make these kinds of connections.
Let's start getting some information out there. It's helpful for everybody, right? Thank you. We'll be back right after this. We're out of time. I want to thank all of our guests for being here. There are some people at home right now that are watching the screen and may now think that they've got some answers to their issues in their life. They may figure out that this may be the only place that they can come. I will say that at the beginning of the show and throughout the show, we have all collectively talked about the spectrum. There is a spectrum of sexuality that we have to admit to. It goes from 0 to 1 million. I don't know. Let's say 1 million is that person who has a sex drive that all they think about is sex. Well, you know, if that's that person, a doctor would probably sit down and say, let's have a conversation about that. If 24 hours a day all you're thinking about is sex, homie, we have to figure out why your sex drive is so high. I got to say, I buy it, though, in this sense, that because if there's a bell curve in the middle, there's something at each extreme. So you guys may be just the extreme, and you know, I wish you well. I hope everything goes well for you. And I want more people, though, to come up on the website and get the extra information that they may need that may not be there. If that's what she's saying is true. Yeah. Your book is out. It's called Fearless Sex. You can go out and get a copy of it. I got it around here somewhere. Fearless Sex. You can go out and get a copy of it if you want. And I'm glad we had this discussion. I want to have more. So, you know, I'm going to keep a track of your website. When you get up to like 25, 30 grand people, call me back. Let's have some more people on. Let's talk about it, okay? I'm out of time. Join us on the next one.